Hello, friends. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever this podcast is finding you. It's early Thursday morning for me. I was just getting ready in the bathroom to go out to my coffee shop, start working on some good client projects. And then I'm like, I think I kind of want to record. I've been meaning to jump on the mic or find some time to get on the mic this week after all of my travels this month, which I definitely will be getting into in this episode. And I don't know, when you get the call, you get the call. So I was like, I'm going to record this quick episode and then carry on with my day. Might still go to my coffee shop. Might end up just working from home today. I don't know. We'll see where the day unfolds. But before we jump in, if you are new here, welcome. I'm so happy to have you. My name is Evelina. If you don't already know me, I'm a brand strategist and designer, artist, creative, multi-passionate, all the things, honestly, depending on what day it is and what I feel compelled to really call myself. But I'm the founder of my Dear Creative Studio Domka, where I do most, if not all, of my creative expression, which includes this podcast that I have been going on for, I don't know, over 3 years at this point. I think it's been over 3 years, or it will be 3 years this year, which is very exciting. In terms of the podcast, it's been a little bit scattered this season. If you've listened to previous episodes on the show, you know I've liked to roll out episodes and seasons, but season 5 is just a trust fall where I am pressing record really whenever I'm called, whenever inspiration strikes. There's no real format or structure, which is very counterintuitive and against the grain from how I normally like to operate, being mostly a really big planner and having an itinerary and schedule of all the things that I anticipate doing. But with this season, it's been kind of nice to just give myself space. And I think that's really been the theme of the season of my life this year so far in 2026 is just space and seeing where things go. I think a former version of myself come 3, 4, 5 years ago would look at this current version of myself and really ask, like, who is she? Because especially this year, and I think the last 2 years in particular, have really helped me get to this point where I'm just living in more trust. And I think I can say actually confidently that I'm seeing more and more people that I follow, bigger names, someone like Jenna Kutcher, who I love reading her newsletter. It's been actually coming in more frequently, and it's very refreshing to read her content, and just other like creators and people in the scene that I've been following, from business influencers and coaches and mentors and people in that general space. Step away from a lot of this, like, I don't know, structure, for lack of a better term, or rules, and kind of just say whatever and go more with the flow, for lack of a better expression. And I think that ultimately all lends itself to, for all of us, I really feel, of working towards coming back to living more in the present moment, because that's what I believe ultimately is the ultimate intention for all of us, is to find more moments in our everyday where we're truly living and operating and breathing and being from this place of just presence, where our mind is neither here nor there. It just is in the moment. And there's a peace and there's just like a goodness about it. And actually, this morning, I did a quick little yoga flow, which that too has been neither here nor there. That's kind of just like, okay, I wake up today and I'll do my yoga flow. And most days I'm actually not doing a yoga flow anymore. And if you guys, again, have been with me from early Studio Domka days, you know that I have been very routine oriented, especially in the mornings. I would have this like super extensive 2-hour routine where I would wake up, do my 16 ounces of warm lemon salt electrolyte water, and then I would do 16 ounces of, I don't know, some or other combination of like organic Olivia's liver juice and maybe some creatine. I don't know, whatever I was feeling or doing in that time, and then go into either a yoga flow or Pilates workout for 30 minutes, and then journal for 30 minutes and read and walk. And like, it was like a whole thing. I mean, I felt great, but and I think I've spoken about this definitely on prior podcasts, but I definitely needed that routine in that season of my life because that was a moment where I actually didn't have routine. And I was just kind of, I remember like, gosh, when I first started my business, moving back from Boston and living back at my parents' house, I was waking up at like 7 a.m. one day, 5 a.m. the other day. Like there was just nothing. And I felt very lost and scattered. So I think in that moment, the discipline to like wake up at 5:15, 5:30 consistently every single day and take myself on this extensive routine to just get me um, almost like primed for the day, just so I can be more focused and attentive to doing my tasks was a beautiful thing. But the slippery slope of over depending on something, including routines which have served you well, became real. I'd probably say a couple years ago, where I really kind of started looking at and questioning, do I still need this? How much does it really serve me? How much have I maybe started over depending on it? And it's interesting where I went from no routine to extreme routine. And now I'm in this like nice equilibrium of I know that I can lean on the routine if I need it, but then I also know that I'm okay without it. So this morning I actually had a little bit more of a routine where I did my yoga flow. But the thing that I wanted to touch on before I totally lose my train of thought is I took a moment after my flow, which I typically really liked in the past to have done or did, um, is just like sitting in gratitude and saying a little prayer. I used to also try to carve out like 15, 20 minutes of focused meditation or breath work, depending on the day. Again, sometimes it got very extensive. But I realized this morning, I'm like, I haven't had like, I don't know, even just like 5 minutes of like dedicated mindfulness time, which I was even debating this morning as I was like preparing to sit in my little mindfulness moment of what even is this. um I've really been, again, just looking at all of the tools that I've been leveraging for the last several years that have helped and accelerated my growth and journey and helped gotten me here. And I don't know, just maybe like taking a second look at it, especially the ones where I was like do or die and like really planted my stake in the ground. And I'm like, this is it. This is the answer. Because I don't know, this is just like a life reflection in general. But as I grew older, I recognize that the more of those moments in my life where I feel like 100% confident in full conviction, like this is the truth no matter what, those are oftentimes the moments that at some point or another will end up catching back up to me and humble me and have me reflecting like, maybe this wasn't like 100%. I don't know. I think it's like there's this invitation of opening that I've welcomed recently of it. And I'm trying to be mindful of what to say because on the flip side, I can hear the counter argument of like, well, then what's your opinion on anything? Like, do you have a stance on anything here? Or are you just like always flopping around, like not knowing where your place is? And I think what I want to say and how I'm like trying to articulate the feeling is I am okay to hold on to a perspective or an opinion while knowing that that can change at any moment. And I think the difference with me saying that versus the version of me several years ago was that if I like formed an opinion on something, then it was that period. And there was just no room. Like it was so constricting when I think about it. And now it's like, no, I'm opinionated on something. Like I have my stance. This is how I feel. But I also know that, you know what? Like that could change. Or I know that, I don't know, someone may come into my life that could totally shift that perspective. And as I actually say that, I will pat myself on the back because that in itself was a reminder that took me years, I think, to learn. And I think I needed to learn that through being humbled many, many times of, okay, I felt this way about something in my life. And then, yeah, something shifted it, but it was hard. It was hard for me to let that go because I think there's an internal feeling, at least for me, this is what I experience. Like, no one likes to be wrong because I think that inherently is tied to you maybe feeling like you're a bad person or something. I don't know. I don't know. That's at least how I've always internalized it. Like sometimes to admit that you're wrong just leaves you feeling maybe like you're bad, or I don't know, that could come with other feelings like you're embarrassed or you're ashamed or whatever else, insert uncomfortable emotion. So, yeah, I think it took me a very long time to learn that, but I think I'm at the place now where it's like, okay, I can hold an opinion, but if it shifts, that's okay. And I don't have to take it personally. I don't have to internalize it any more than I, might have in the past. And I've experienced this, I think, in all chapters of my life, whether it's relationships, family, business, money, even things like politics and religion. Like I look back at perspectives that I held years ago and where I'm at now, and in some instances I'm on the complete opposite polar end. On some maybe I've deviated a little bit, but I think to get to where I am now, it took a lot of like pride swallowing of like, okay, this is hard because I again feel like a failure for maybe thinking this way. All to say, this place right now of just being again more open feels really good. And it's something, again, I check myself on. I was having a conversation just this past weekend at my best friend's wedding that I'll share a little bit more details on. We'll definitely catch you guys up on what's been unfolding for me the last month in particular, because a lot has happened. Maybe the last 2 months to say, because I think the last time I pressed record on this podcast was actually 2 months ago. But to land my last point, I had to catch myself this past weekend at a conversation at my cousin's wedding with someone where we were talking about a really, we can call it like controversial topic around health and like vaccinations and whatever. All my conspiracy theorists out there, raise your hand because I'm all for it. But I was forming an opinion that I was like, felt so strongly about. And after that conversation ended, and I'm like, you know what, Evelina, you could very well change your opinion on this like next year. So chill, like it's okay. But I think I needed to say what I needed to say in that instance. But it was just like that minute afterwards of reflection that, I said that with pretty strong conviction, but reminder that could shift. Like, believe what you believe, but also be open to learning more and just having your perspective deviate if it needs to. So I think that's where I want to land the plane on that. But now to move on maybe to other things, which is really kind of the intention of why you wanted to jump on the mic, because I just got back from a really beautiful vacation. I think May, it's crazy. As I'm recording this podcast, it's May 28th. So May is literally almost done. There's like 3 days left of the month. And this week is the first week that, or it has been at least, that I'm kind of getting back into just a routine because I've been away most of the month. I was traveling. My fiance, life update. There is, if you're watching anywhere on Spotify or YouTube, this is the proof. There is the rock on my hand, which is beautiful. I love her. I can't stop looking at her. Yes, I got engaged, so I will share all the updates on that shortly. And it's just like I'm still getting used to, both my fiance and I are still getting used to just deviating from boyfriend girlfriend to fiance, which feels like super cool to say. So we're just savoring that newness and freshness of the season. But my fiance and I traveled. We went to Punta Cana, and this was end of April. So I think April 29th is when we left. So literally almost a month ago, we ventured to the DR, Dominican Republic, with a really lovely bunch. It was my best friend and cousin, Natalia, who just got married this past weekend on Memorial Day with her fiance at the time. And just like our closest friends and cousins, whoever who could have attended this joint bachelorette party that we were celebrating for them for their upcoming wedding that literally just happened this weekend. So that was beautiful. We were there for almost, well, Lewis and I were there for almost a week. The trip itself was 5 days. Lewis and I stayed an extra day because afterwards we flew out to Colombia. We figured let's batch these trips because the Dominican is only like 2.5 hours from Colombia. No, I'm kidding. Or was it 4? I think it was 2.5. I don't know why I'm blanking. It feels like it was so long ago, but we just took this flight a few weeks ago. Either way, it totally made sense to fly from the DR directly to Colombia, which is where Lewis is from, and we've been before. I actually will plug my last post Colombia trip update podcast episode here because if you haven't listened to that one, that'll probably give you a little bit of just deeper context. And I think it's a great continuation of basically what I experienced on that trip last year to what I experienced on this Colombia trip this year. Because every time I go with Lewis, there's just something that permeates my essence and my soul being there. I love South America. I love Colombia. I honestly, I tell Lewis, I'm like, I feel more Colombian than I do Polish in a lot of ways. The culture for me just lands. It resonates so much. Everything about it, from the food, the music, the like just the hospitality, how Colombian people and South Americans in general are just so warm and welcoming, whereas Polish people, no knock on them, and Eastern Europeans in general could be a little bit more cold, but then once you break that exterior, we're really fun and soft inside, but it could be a little intimidating. Um the weather in South America is so much better. I don't know. It's just, I really feel like I was a Spanish princess in a past life. And I say that all the time to my fiance and friends and family. I just love it there. And every time I go, it's interesting what happens because, for one, being in Colombia with Lewis, which is where he's from, really, and it's like I don't even have to try. I kind of just have no way around it. I am in full surrender mode because, one, I don't speak the language, at least not fluently yet. My Spanish is progressing, nowhere near perfect though, I will say. And Lewis just knows the lay of the land. So when it comes to taking any, you know, joint excursions or just like doing anything, even like grabbing breakfast or calling an Uber, like that, he does it all. And I have no say because I kind of can't. I mean, I can, but I don't even try. He runs everything. And it just like, it feels so good. It feels so good because normally the way I operate and I function is I want to have a say. I like to have a say, depending on what it is. When it comes to travel in particular, and I think maybe this is especially true for me and anybody else listening who has done their fair share of solo traveling and has also this additional kind of like desire, if I want to say, for just like experiencing it all. Granted, I think in the last couple of years, I've also learned a lot of lessons or have had a lot of reminders around that where whenever I would take trips, it would be this whole itinerary of like, you're here, you need to experience everything or else. Like, how could you not do this, try this? There was always these expectations that were set on travel, but also this desire that these things were going to really give you this external fulfillment. And man, I've talked a lot about how travel has been my teacher in prior episodes. Definitely encourage you guys to go back and listen. Any episode where I like say something about travel, that's one where I'm unpacking and dissecting how my relationship with travel has changed and how much I stopped using it to fuel any external desires. Because I think this is the biggest allure with taking trips is we go on vacations hoping for them to fulfill us, which they do in some ways, but I think I'll speak for myself, but I think confidently say most people a lot of times do this is they go on the trip anticipating that it's going to again bring them, I mean, external joy, external fulfillment, which is so alluring. Like it truly, truly is, because the minute that you get home from that vacation is the minute most people feel like I need a vacation after my vacation, or then they go, they become depressed when they get back to their routine, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when I started learning this lesson, very hard, I guess I could say, is when the travel didn't fill me up anymore. I remember when I was living abroad in Valencia for 2 months, and of course, it was all exciting and new and novel at the beginning. But like a couple weeks in, I'm walking the streets of this like incredible, beautiful, historical city, and I'm feeling flat. I'm like, why am I not feeling greater joy? Why am I not more excited to be here? And it was at that point that I started recognizing like, I have been putting all of my expectations and having these external cities, experiences fulfill me, and they never will, because the only joy that I ever will fulfill me is internally, and it always will come from God. And the minute we try to think that like the next relationship or the next trip or the next outfit or material object or whatever the heck it is going to bring that to us, is the minute that we've lost the plot. So constant reminder too, just for life, for myself, every single day, of like, don't put your happiness into that thing, because it's not going to give it to you, or maybe temporarily, but then it's going to dissipate, and it's like the come down is going to be a lot worse than what you expected. So anyways, tangent aside on my realizations with travel and all that have emerged in the last several years of my life, but this trip to Colombia and the recent trips I've been taking have felt just so much more neutral, of like, I'm going to just go to experience what I need to, but there's no expectations. I don't need this trip to make me feel any better than I already do. It's just an experience in my journey that God has planted for me. I'm probably going to have a lot of beautiful interactions. I'm probably going to be reminded of some lessons about my life. And that's it. And just be present and enjoy every single bit and be open to whatever is around you. And to have that perspective going into travels now, again, it's just been really, really nice. So with this trip to Colombia, again, because it also wasn't my first time, I think this was my fourth time going with Lewis. I've seen a lot of the sites, I've done a lot of the things. So there wasn't necessarily the same novelty that I've experienced in the past, but nonetheless, it's been such a shift, and it was truly such a shift from my day to day here and my routine. And because Lewis and I hadn't taken a trip together I think the last trip actually that him and I took was back in August, when we flew down to Florida to see my dear friend Ashley with her partner Patrick. But that was like a quick weekend trip. It was also to Florida, which we've been to many times before. We haven't taken like a novel excursion in a while. No, I'm lying. Actually, we went to Poland after that. I totally forgot about that trip. Wow, yes, that was the last big, big trip. And that was novel in a lot of ways too. Granted, I've been to Poland many times. I'm from there, but Lewis has never been, and we visited some cities that I actually have never seen before. So there was some novelty in that. But the experience of just like, again, being immersed in a different culture, because I think on a tangible physical level, that does a lot to also help you just, I don't know, break the day-to-day norm, especially if you are living from a place of more routine and doing the same thing every single day. So to go on this trip, and not only to be in a place like Colombia that is just a completely different culture and lifestyle, and this is especially to what I love about South American lifestyle, granted at first it was very triggering for me, is there's just this level of chill that is undeniable. There's no urgency, there's no rushing. All of the like important necessities and to-dos that I had, whether it came to like doing work here for my business, or even stuff like gotta go to the gym, gotta clean the apartment, gotta do whatever, that just kind of dissipates, and you're just cast into this setting where you're surrounded by people who are just living more in the present moment, because there's no urgency. Granted, that could be a little annoying sometimes. Okay, no one thinks this is important. Like, can we like put a pep in our step? It's like that's moments where I have to check myself of like, is it actually like what is actually really urgent? Unless it's a life or death situation, maybe. Like I don't need to get out of this coffee shop or hound this waiter down to get me my check because I need to go see whatever. It's like I can sit here for an extra 30 minutes and enjoy this coffee and conversation with my fiance and these people, whatever the case may be. So it's always those experiences, especially in settings that are very counter to the day-to-day routine that is here in America, but especially in, I don't know, just like here home in New Brain, Connecticut for me, that are especially powerful to pull me out of what I know. So I'll say that very quickly, I was able to get into that just energy of I'm just existing. And it was so nice. And as I mentioned, having the extra benefit of having Lewis take care of everything was so nice. So, so nice because it really just let me soften, surrender, and just be. Because normally on trips, especially if we're traveling somewhere locally, I don't know, say we're planning a trip and context dependent, especially though if it's a new city or a new place, because there's that part of me sometimes still that just is curious and wants to know and experience, even though I've removed myself from the, okay, external things will never bring me the joy that I already have within myself. There is still that part of Evelina that is forever curious and wants to experience and just get the most out of life, whether that's seeing the museum, experiencing the best coffee, definitely trying like all the restaurants and all the food. Lewis and I are big, big foodies. And so when it comes to just like cool meals or cocktails or whatever, like we're here for it. Like sign us up. So when it comes to those aspects of especially a new place that I've never seen, I still get excited about that because I enjoy that. I relish it. While also now again just being in this place of like I'm okay if I don't have this thing, but if I have the opportunity to have it, I'm going to savor it. God has presented this in my path, and I'm going to enjoy every single bit of it that I can, including all the details, all of the flavors, all of the whatever, the essence of it. So there is that aspect of me. So whenever we are in a new area, I like to still just be mindful of that. And this is where I can get in the way and want to control and make the itinerary and do the things and set the expectations. So there's a beauty when I'm in Colombia with Lewis because I'm completely removed from that. And there's just this like natural trust that happens. Not to say that I never trust Lewis or anything like that. That's been also a journey in itself. I think for all of us is with our significant others, like really living day to day from this place of like, I fully trust you. You got this. There's the part of me that wants to control and have an opinion and blah, blah, blah. But it's also okay to like not do any of that and just be present and be at peace, knowing that, the other person is going to plan or do whatever they need to do for the both of us. And however it turns out, whether it's exactly how I imagined or totally opposite to, we're going to go with it. We're going to go with it. So I experienced all the trust and surrender. I always do when we're there. And it was beautiful. And I love that about going to Colombia because when we come back home and we like shift back into our routine, I have that fresh reminder in my head of like, hold on to this, Evelina. Like, don't go back to your old ways of feeling like, okay, well, now the house has to be perfectly clean. And now we have to do this, this, this. And we eat lunch, dinner, and breakfast at this time and all that. And I just like the normal little details that you think about. And you're like, does this really matter? And the other beautiful thing always about vacation is the spontaneity because there is no schedule. Every day looks so completely different. Plans come up out of nowhere, especially being in Bogota when we were, because that's where all of Lewis's friends are and his family. So every single day we didn't have a plan because every single day, last minute, a friend or someone would reach out like, hey, okay, I'm free this day. Let's grab dinner or a drink or whatever. So we really took it day by day and it was beautiful. And of course, the best, most memorable part is leaving with an engagement ring. So this was truly so, so special. And Oh, I don't know. Again, I just like, I look at this ring and I'm like, I'm obsessed. I'm in love. All the things. Um, so I'll share I'll share the story because I think, of course, I have to share the story. If you guys are listening and you're here for the engagement, you're like, okay, so what happened? Well, it was, I'll say, and especially reflecting more and more on it, because I've shared this story so many times. Obviously, we come home, everybody's like, so what happened? How did you do it? Blah, blah, blah. So you say the story, and the more you say it, you reflect, and you're like, wow, it was honestly so, so perfect. Even though in some moments you're like, oh my gosh, like, why did this happen? For one, I knew it was going to happen. So the surprise was kind of like ruined in some ways. But once more, as I reflect, it was truly so perfect and it just needed to happen. Everything needed to happen the way that it did because that's just the way that it was supposed to be. So I had a little bit maybe of like this question mark in my head of, oh, maybe we'll get engaged on this trip even before going, because Lewis and I have been talking about getting engaged for months. It's been a topic of conversation for a while. Um and I truly had no idea ever how it was going to actually go. But I figured if it is to happen, it might happen on vacation because I don't know. I think all engagement, not all, but a lot of engagements do happen on these like getaways. Granted, I also told Lewis, if you just woke up one morning and just rolled over in bed and was like, do you want to get married? And like pulled out the ring, I think I would have, I know I would have been okay with that too. Obviously, there's an extra specialness when there's all these other things involved. But the other, and I'll maybe share this after the story, but the other thing that I've been reflecting about, and I've even shared with like close friends, is it's interesting that this ring, this material object, is now on my hand, and it obviously signifies something deeper, which is, I know deep down, the reason for the emotion that came with it, the excitement and all of that. But if you really zoom out, and I said this to Lewis right after he like proposed and we were having dinner that night, of like, this doesn't mean that I love you anymore or anything like that. Like, it's kind of funny that we put so much weight and significance on something like this. Like, the ring, the engagement, and don't even get me started about like the wedding and what that should all be, because I have many opinions and thoughts of like how we anticipate like wedding planning going. But yeah, it's just something that we were very conscious of and aware of, in that, yeah, we know that this obviously has so much more extra like weight on it because of what we've all as a society put on it, that it just has to be this like massive thing, where deep down my love for Lewis hasn't changed. It's the same. If anything, this is just a symbolic gesture that we are both in agreement to be with one another, to commit to one another on a deeper level, and get married and just stay together. So yeah, I don't know, I'm just like, now my brain's going like even more like deeper things, like how much society like places weight on everything. And God, okay, I won't go too far because this could be like a whole podcast episode in itself. But to get back to the story, the main story of the engagement, um it was very perfect, very beautiful. Lewis had planned this little getaway, this 2 day getaway for us right outside of Bogota in the countryside, in the Colombian mountains, in this little pueblito that his best friend had driven us to. And it was like, the experience itself, getting there to this little village, was one for the books, because you're driving on like the most winding mountainscape roads. And in some cases, there's no railing. And once you get into the little village, then you're driving on this especially sketchy dirt road for God knows where. And mind you, I had no idea where we were going. He didn't share any details. It was also very special because our 2 year anniversary was last week on Tuesday. And we agreed, while we were home last week, we didn't, and we're in Colombia, we agreed to kind of just like celebrate and acknowledge our 2 year anniversary there. So this was kind of like the reasoning for the getaway of like, we're celebrating our 2 years. Whereas in the back of my mind, I especially was pretty confident that like, okay, he's going to ask too. And the biggest detail that I think I forgot and I forgot to mention was the fact that I did actually end up seeing the ring box in his backpack before we even left to Colombia. We the night when we were in the Dominican Republic repacking, Lewis and I, to fly out to Colombia. This was after our bachelorette party with all my friends and family. They had already left. They were flying back here to Connecticut, and Lewis and I got an Airbnb outside our all-inclusive resort because we were flying out the next day to go to Bogota. So we're repacking all our stuff. You know, we have to make sure our luggages make weight and everything. And I'm looking for the little luggage scale that we brought with us. And Lewis was not being very helpful. He was on the bed. He was watching pickleball videos on our Airbnb bed. And I'm like, babe, where's the luggage scale? Not helpful. Again, granted, he's like, this is not my fault. And I will acknowledge it's not his fault. And I'm not blaming him at all. This is just exactly the way it was supposed to be. And when I asked him, and, he didn't tell me where it was, I just went looking. So I opened his backpack, pulled out his hoodie, and lo and behold, I see this little red box on the bottom of the backpack. And it took me a second to register, like, what the heck is this? And then I'm like, oh my God, like my heart dropped. It was like the weirdest sensation because I felt like I just like discovered this massive secret. And I obviously knew what it meant. He was hiding it. Like, what guy who's getting ready to propose to his girlfriend doesn't pull all the stops and, like, yeah, just is mindful about her not discovering it. So I felt very bad and very guilty. I immediately closed up the backpack, put his stuff back in, and just went to the bathroom to take a break. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I think he's going to propose. And it was just like the immediate shock, but then also this wave of like, so much negativity of like, why did I have to go through his backpack? Like, why, God? Like, why did you let me see the ring? Now this ruined everything. Like, that was my immediate reaction. I felt so like bad about it. And obviously in the moment, I was like, I can't tell him that I saw it. So, and I didn't at all until, of course, after it happened. And then we talked about everything and I did share with him. But I will say a couple things. In reflection and that I've talked with him about and just friends and family when I share the story, in that now in retrospect, I'm actually very grateful that I did see, because the minute that I discovered the box and I realized that, oh my gosh, I think he's going to propose, I got so excited. I got so excited, and whatever kind of animosity or negativity I was holding on to, because there was bickering leading up to this trip. And before any trip, I imagine that most couples are trying to pack, get their stuff together, and me being Polish and with my tendencies of like perfectionism, like we need to make sure we have everything perfectly packed and prepared and I's dotted, T's crossed, whatever. And Lewis, rightfully so, again, he's my strongest mirror. And the moments that he annoys me are the moments that I need to, like, not in the moment, but afterwards, I reflect and I'm like, I'm only bothered by this because he's showing me something that I haven't been willing to accept and see for myself. So in the moments where I'm panicking, I'm freaking out, I'm whatever, and he's cool as a cucumber and I start getting irritated, it's because I'm expecting him to reflect my emotions. But let's be honest. If he was also panicking and freaking out just as much as I was, would I really feel that much better? Absolutely not. So, of course, I can't have it either way, because when he's calm, I'm also reactive. So it's kind of laughable when I zoom out and really think about it, and how like our partners, and whether it's siblings or parents or any close person to us, will do that. You may anticipate them reacting a different way and they don't, and then you're bothered. But then if they were to do that, you'd also be bothered. I don't know. It's like we can never win in a way. But I love, love, love this quality about Lewis so much, because he reminds me that nothing is ever that serious. Nothing is ever that urgent. It's only in my own mind that I anticipate and make up these stories that this like has to be done right away and I need my way. And he's like, no, And he's not afraid to like stand his ground and really say otherwise, which is what I need. It's uncomfortable a lot. Um, yeah, it's uncomfortable for me a lot because I don't know, I like to get my way a lot, like maybe most people do. So to be told no is not always the best, but gosh, I need that balance in my life. That's why I'm so grateful that he offers it to me. So prior to us leaving on this trip, it was that energy of like, I need you to help me pack, and he's like, we're fine, like calm down. And so naturally, some of that. And then in addition to him, of course, how are any women supposed to know this when your significant other is out there not only buying the ring, but then going to your parents' house to ask your hand in marriage behind your back? But then obviously they can't tell you that they're doing it because it like is supposed to be a surprise. So then they obviously have to lie. And then you always deep down actually kind of know that they're lying. So then you get even more upset. So it was all of that. And I feel like every single person I've shared this story with has reflected back to me like, oh yeah, I was ready to like throw hands before I got engaged because it was chaos. And I will never fully know the stresses and things that Lewis had to go through in order to make this whole thing happen. But I know he was planning a lot because the whole event and experience that he had planned out for us in the Colombian mountainside at this beautiful Airbnb, this like I can't even describe it, this like geodome glamping tent or something that he rented, which by the way, I was like, what are we doing? You're not a camping person. I'm not a camping person. It was beautiful, of course, but I was just so surprised. And that's where it happened. Once his best friend finally drove us through this little village and we got there, immediately he had asked us to just change because we were getting ready for dinner. There was going to be, the hostess was going to give us some dinner there, and I just had a feeling like, okay, maybe he might ask me like here while we're here. And it just happened like immediately as soon as we got there. Little did I know, because he was so stressed planning everything. And so I think because it happened so quickly when we got there, it actually kind of caught me by surprise, even though I was still kind of anticipating like maybe this will happen. Um, but my reaction was, and he'll say this, and he's told everybody that it couldn't have been better. Like I truly was in the most joy, and also again the most surprise, even though I kind of knew it was going to happen. But it's just like the feeling is overwhelming. I don't know, I always wondered like, why do women cry when they get asked? And I always wondered like, am I going to cry? I don't think I'm going to cry. Like, I'm an emotional person, I can be, but when it comes to these things, like I don't anticipate it. And let me tell you guys, I was kind of hysterical. Like, it was this feeling of extreme joy where I couldn't control my laughter. Like, I was laughing so much, in tears that just like couldn't stop. I was laughing and crying simultaneously, and just so excited. It was amazing. It was amazing. Again, I don't know. It's like the significance and the symbolism of all of this. Like, I don't know. I mean, obviously there's something to it. It is beyond the ring and that whole ritual that of asking. There is this like anticipation of just being with your person for the rest of your life. But I think to kind of tie it to a bigger thing that I've been also reflecting on, and maybe like just thinking through like, wow, in that moment, I felt so much joy and love. And again, it's not that I love my partner more just because I have a ring or anything like that, but like you're just reminded of that love in the moment. And that's ultimately what everybody, I believe, is after in this world. Everybody just wants to be reminded that they are loved and that they've always been loved. And this is the hardest reminder. I think this is everybody's life journey, because we all grow up with baggage, and every single interaction that has happened in our lives, whether it was the time that we were reprimanded when we were like 7 years old in like second grade by our teacher, or got in trouble by our parents, or we got broken up by an ex, or we form these little narratives along our life journeys, and they culminate into making us feel like we're anything but loved. And the return, the journey back home that I truly, with my fullest conviction, believe that we're on is to take steps every single day that will bring us closer to God and remind us that we are actually so insanely loved. And if we go even deeper into like metaphysics and content from like deep spirituality, like I'm talking, conversations I've had with my dear friend and mentor Ashley on this show, if you guys have listened to them, talking about A Course in Miracles philosophy and all of that. It's like, if we take it that step further, where like if we kind of think about this idea that we're not even real, like we don't even exist, because in a way, in coming from Christianity as well, it's like the belief that heaven really is only real. That's where eternal life is. So like what do our like material 3D bodies, like how real are they actually if we're only here for a very set amount of time? And the true reality is happens afterwards. Then it's like, if we know we're coming back to God, and God is eternal love, then like we are eternally loved. So it's like, I'll pause there, but that's essentially the thought. It's like that deep core love of like, oh my gosh. And last point I want to make is like, every single person in our lives that we come into contact with, that's a part of us, whether it's family, friends, your relationship, husband, boyfriend, whoever, all of those people are extensions of the oneness of God. And they're just meant to remind you of that love every single day. And it all depends how you see it. Are you going to meet this person also with love and receive the reminder that you are loved? Or are you going to see them with judgment and, hate, or whatever the case may be? So I know in that moment between Lewis and I, it was really just like the ultimate reminder of the love of God. And it was overwhelming. It was so overwhelming. Because I think the symbolism of that moment, and I think this is too what a lot of people feel, I anticipate or imagine when they get married, is you are choosing a person that, and you express in your vows, to unconditionally love you no matter what, through good, through bad, through sickness and health. And those words, and I think there's no coincidence why those are the specific words that you say when you are getting married at the altar, is because it's a reminder from God that no matter what, whether you're good, you're bad, you're healthy, you're unhealthy, like God loves you regardless of anything. And so to be reminded of that through another person, through your future husband or your future wife, is ultimately that reminder coming from God. That's how I've at least really have been seeing and feeling it. And I think on a core level, we can't always find reason for our emotions or why we feel a certain type of way, why we cry the tears we cry, or laugh and smile and experience all these things. But there's something working through us in every single moment. And that, I believe, is just the Holy Spirit, the purest extension from God, reminding us of that. And God working through us, God working through other people to show us and remind us of that love. So I don't know. I really, that's what I felt. And it was beautiful. It was so beautiful in that. And just the rest of that trip, riding off of that excitement and that bliss. And I think you're reminded of that too. I think, well, definitely through other people, when other people celebrate and congratulate you and cheer for you, you're continuously reminded of that. Granted, there's been the part of me that's like, it's okay, like it's not a big deal, like people have gotten us flowers and champagne and have acknowledged us. And like at first there's the part of me that's like, oh, you guys didn't have to do that, like you don't have to. And then I'm like, no, like it's okay, Evelina, like be loved on, be celebrated. And constant reminders that it's okay. And this is just meant to be a season of like really pure love and joy. And the part of me that could feel like, oh, like you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't gone out of your way to buy us this thing and like celebrate us. It's like, no, that's what this is for. And I'm reminded too, I just experienced this weekend. My cousin got married. And so we were out there celebrating her, and it felt so amazing to celebrate her. And gosh, I got so emotional. I was the maid of honor, the co-maid of honor with her sister, my other cousin. And the speeches that we gave, I rehearsed it many times. I was like, I don't think I'm going to cry. I'll be fine. But like in the moment, like you cry because like you're in it, everyone's listening, you're speaking directly to this person that you love so much. And you express like your deepest love for them, and it just brings so much joy. And so, yeah, in those moments, and I think this is just like a PSA for anybody who might feel like they have a hard time receiving some things. It's like, how do you think about how you give? Because if you give from a place of joy and just a full heart, you should receive from that place too. Because I feel like myself and every single person this weekend at my cousin's wedding really gave so much, just like excitement and joy and happiness and well wishes and congratulations, but so beautifully because you're so happy for that person. And I think that is what's really beautiful and special about weddings and celebrations, is because it is a symbolic big gesture, of course, in some instances, of that love and that giving, that selfless giving of support and just excitement for someone that you really value and cherish and appreciate. So, yeah. So then on to the question of weddings and what we want to do. Speaking of that, and really obviously having the best time at my cousin's wedding, um, Lewis and I actually had a chat where we decided we're not going to talk about wedding stuff for at least a month, because we just want to celebrate the engagement and just like savor and relish this engagement this season. Because immediately, of course, the question that everybody asks is like, so when are you getting married? Where are you thinking? Like, as if we have everything figured out like the day after we got engaged. But maybe some people anticipate that you kind of do, or you have like an idea in mind. But Lewis and I actually have no idea. Like, I don't know if it's going to happen later this year or if it's going to happen next year. We both are on the same page of sooner than later. I could marry him tomorrow. It's really a question of how we want to do it. There's the part of us that really wants to, or feels the pull to just be very intimate and private and even just elope and just get it over with. But then there's the other part of us, and this is a factor that I've really been thinking about for years, not just the last couple weeks since I've been engaged, but always the question in the back of my mind of my family and my friends, because I really, really, especially this weekend was a beautiful reminder of that. But in the last several years, I have entered the space of much deeper gratitude and appreciation and presence for my family and the gift that it is, because not everyone grows up with a large family like I have, and especially a family that is so supportive. And obviously, like every family or relationship or person, holds a strong mirror in different ways, sometimes comfortable, sometimes uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, it is a gift and a blessing. And I think with that comes this deep desire to share in that joy and celebration with them in some way. Traditionally and typically, for most, if not every single person in my family, and also close Polish friends who have gotten married, it's a very traditional, big celebration with 150 to 250, if not more, guests. Um, Pretty much at the same venue right here down my street. My dear, dear, dear cousin's wife who owns the venue. It's beautiful. It's a great time, great food. And there's that part of me that's like, for tradition's sake, to do it that way. But there is also the desire for me to do it different. And what I ultimately feel is this desire of like a blending of both, of how can we meet in the middle and not have it be quite maybe the same of how it's always been done, but also not so different that it takes away from some of the tradition and rituals that are actually really important to me. And especially witnessing them this weekend with my cousin, I was reminded of like, this is actually really beautiful. And yes, there's significance and a deeper meaning behind all of it. And it's ultimately what you give it. But there is something special and important for me to continue that ritual and tradition in some way, shape, or form. I'm very, again, back to that idea of openness, trying to go into this process of wedding planning. And I don't even want to use that word because I think in itself that's already setting everybody up for expectations, of course, because anytime you plan, you set expectations, not to say that like we're just going to show up the day of and things are going to be done. There's obviously some coordinating that has to be done beforehand. So we're aware of that. But I just want to be so mindful to not get caught up in that very tedious, overwhelming process because I just witnessed my cousin go through it and it was very overwhelming. And I've witnessed most, if not all, of my friends who have gotten married in this way, shape, or form also go through that. And it doesn't have to be, so tedious and difficult every single time. But I, especially in the last couple of years, have recognized that there is this option that is always available for us of more ease in our lives. And oftentimes we don't see it, or we feel like we can't take that route because there's something in the way. For example, um, and this is just I'm speaking general broad terms, a lot of people will navigate the hurdle of their parents or their families when wedding planning. You want to make sure that they're happy. Everybody agrees with what you're doing. And there's, in that instance, two options. You could either totally agree with your parents, and that oftentimes can come at the expense of your own happiness and your own joy, or you can disagree with them and then do what you want that comes with its own set of things, uh, which could mean something like more ease. Now, in both instances, there's, maybe we could say, like a level or a layer that you have to get past. In the first one, it is you're compromising what you want, your happiness, to do what other people want. And a lot of people may go that route for whatever reasons. Sometimes it's financial, sometimes they just want to really uphold and follow the tradition. And sometimes they just feel like it's not worth the fight or the battle. So then they don't necessarily get what they want. They might be unhappy, but they justify it. They're like, you know what? It's fine. And that in itself is an option. Option two is you have the uncomfortable conversations. And this is the part I think that, I mean, truly, this is the hardest part, is to meet another person face to face, whether it's your parent, your whoever's helping you in the dynamic or who has a say, a parent, an uncle, an aunt, a grandparent, a sibling, whoever, in-laws, and tell them like, listen, this is what we want, or I want, myself and my partner want, and we understand that this is what you want, but let's talk about where we can come together, where we can figure out, what we need, what we don't need. That is the stuff I think that most people avoid. And I can understand for many reasons why. It could be dicey, it can bring up a lot of uncomfortable feelings, altercations. But I think, and as I say this, I'm obviously speaking to myself because I know there's going to be conversations I'm going to be having with people around this, whether it's parents or family, around this vision, just to come with the purest of intentions and to always lead with love. I think a lot of times we approach uncomfortable conversations, especially when it's things that we're hoping to get an outcome from of what we want, and we have this like animosity or this expectation from the other person that like I have to convince them, I have to win. It's like it's one against the other, and it's this friction, and you go into that conversation and it's immediately like a loss because you're leading from that place of like wanting to win or be better than. But I think if we can approach these conversations with just more love and like openness, I keep coming back to that word, but that's really like been the theme of 2026, you guys. And being willing to hear out their position, because I think that's the other thing. We come in with what we want, and we expect other people to come in with what they want for what we probably have in our mind a story of selfish reasons. But if we take the time to hear the other person out, like I can give an example, I can see my parents wanting a more traditional route because it's important for them personally to just uphold family tradition. It's important for them to, include guests of the family because, that's what they've always known. They have a closer relationship maybe with some family members. They want to make sure everybody's part of it. At the end of the day, their intention and their deepest reason, really, regardless of anything, whether it's a wedding or everyday moment, is that they love us. My parents will always love me no matter what. Um, now with my fiance, like he'll be part of the family. So it's like that intention is unwavering. There's always going to be that love. But it's interesting how quickly we forget about that and we think like, oh, they're so selfish. They just want this for themselves, or they're not seeing how I'm feeling. And at the end of the day, we kind of all want the same thing. We're just communicating and expressing differently. So I don't know, I'm talking to myself here. Hopefully, I'm talking to other people who are navigating situations where there's some uncomfortable conversations you have to have with a loved one, or maybe you've had them in the past, and this is offering you another perspective to kind of release some of that animosity or whatever it may be. But that is what I hope to remember and go into with any future conversations. What Lewis and I did decide is let's not talk about wedding planning for now, and let's relish in the engagement. Everyone's asking, obviously, but we don't even know what we're doing. And before we tell anybody what we're doing, very concrete, specific options, let's decide internally with what works best for us, because there's some logistics we have to figure. His friends and family are in Colombia. My family's obviously here. Do we do a destination wedding? My grandparents can't travel. Do we have to do two weddings? There's so many questions, and people want to know. People want to start planning. People want to start getting excited. And we both agreed we're going to figure out those bigger pieces internally, just you and I. And before we're ready to talk about it with anyone, we're going to talk to our parents first. And we're going to give them three options. This is what we think would be the best for us, and just very peacefully and calmly express why. This is option two, where this is like a runner up option. And option three is like, this is worst case scenario. We don't want this, but we're willing to go this route with certain edits and hear you guys out, whatever. So that's so far been internal dialogue between Lewis and I around how we want to approach this and move forward with any type of wedding planning. I gotta find a new word for that. It's not wedding planning, it's wedding anticipating, wedding exciting. I don't know. I don't know. That needs to be replaced because I don't want to plan for my wedding. I want to, like, yes, obviously, like organize it, but that doesn't even feel good to like wedding dreaming. Maybe like invitation to rebrand that whole like industry, and carve out a new niche where it's like we're not pulling all the stops of like this tablecloth, this whatever, but it's like we're dreaming into the purpose and the experience, because that is actually the route that I really, really want to go. And what I kind of want to just maybe end this life update and chat on, um, is similar to how I talked about designing this apartment, this home when we moved a few months ago, is the same exact way I want to go about thinking about our wedding. if we have one, whatever it looks like, but figure out a purpose for it. Is I think a lot of people plan weddings and they're like, okay, it needs to be like this celebration for us and that's it. Because that's weddings are. I mean, we're not going to take that away. Weddings are celebrations, but go deeper. Like, yes, okay, we're celebrating. Obviously, everyone celebrates at a wedding, but what else is important to you based on your values, and how do you really anticipate the day to go based on what is most important to you? So like, obviously, for one, that's just like so clear to me is like connection is my purpose word for home. That's Lewis's purpose word too. His other purpose word for home is peace. So how can we think about, how can we dream into a wedding that is about connection and that it's also about peace? So I can just like spitball right off the gates here. And this is where I'm excited actually if we do end up going this route of organizing something, again, not extreme or grand. We already established like we're not doing the 200-person thing. If anything, we'll try to keep it a little bit more intimate and smaller, under 100 people. But if we think about both of those words, connection and peace, okay, in one regard, peace already, it's so much more peaceful to do something more intimate. So cut your guest list, people. Like Aunt Betty doesn't have to make it if you haven't seen her in 20 years, or that coworker of your dad who like you've only shook hands with like one time on your second grade Holy Communion might not have to make the list. Um, that in itself is very important to us. Lewis doesn't have a lot of family, and most of his friends are in Colombia. So there's that aspect of, not that this would be wrong, like if I invited, every single person from my friends and family there, but that's not a priority for me just inherently. I would rather have my closest people. And I think I've been to enough of these ceremonies and events where I would just rather have my closest people. So in that way, the wedding in itself could inherently just be more peaceful with less people, and maybe with a different run of show. There's so much. I actually was having a conversation with my best friend the other day around the run of show of a wedding day, especially the way that Polish weddings are traditionally run. 1 p.m. is usually the ceremony at church. And so that requires all the bridesmaids and wedding party to be up super early for hair and makeup. And then you have to go take pictures. And then, like, it's just like a whole thing that by the time you actually get to the reception, it's like 5 p.m. and there's like more rituals and stuff. And to me, it just feels so backwards. Like, why not have a later ceremony, but get the pictures done early? And then once the ceremony's done, you head straight to the venue and then you just like celebrate, and maybe you end the night a little earlier. It's like I would just restructure the whole thing. So that in itself is another way that we could bring the value of peace into how we're thinking about organizing our celebrations. And then connection. I think connection speaks to a smaller guest list as well, because then you have the opportunity to be more connected with fewer people, quality over quantity for sure in that regard. So I think that captures connection in a way. But there's so many other details. It's like, could you do long family style tables instead of little round clusters where everyone's separate, but everyone is actually all together and connected? Could you put like a conversation card on everybody's dinner plate and ask them to, I don't know, answer a question to the person sitting next to them? Could you include an intentional moment throughout the night that is just for you and your future husband or wife, that doesn't involve anybody else, but that really just like brings back the personal connection between you both throughout the night? There's so many things. There's so many things. And there's so many experiences that I've also heard of people that I've listened to, especially a lot on like podcasts, who have had weddings, who maybe reflect and are like, oh yeah, I would have done this differently, or I wish I would have done this. So I've taken a lot of mental notes, and my goal is just to be mindful of all of them and just know that not everything is probably going to get achieved, and that's okay. But so long as I think the core intentions of peace and connection in some way, shape, or form are captured, I think that'll be pretty good. Like, I would call that like a solid win. So that is the energy. That's the energy going into this upcoming month and the upcoming months to follow for our wedding dreaming. And I'll be sure to keep you guys in the loop and along the journey for all of that, because if you're in a season of planning a wedding yourself or even just a bigger celebration, whatever that might look like, hopefully this can help inspire you or just give you some ideas of how maybe you could rethink it and do it differently if you're so called. So that is that. And I'm just feeling good about it. I'm feeling really good. Lewis and I will definitely be obviously talking more, and we'll revisit conversations with family and friends at some point. So I'll keep you guys up to speed on how those go, how all of those go. Again, hopefully they're all so peaceful, like I just planted the seeds for them to be, but we'll see. I trust God's plan. And if there's, reminders within the conversations we're going to be having with others, I trust that they're meant to come up and help us just, yeah, move through any deeper narratives we might be holding on to. So I'm ready for it. And lastly, before I close this episode, I figured it could just be nice to regroup and maybe end with what's happening moving forward. I mentioned after vacation, there was the beautiful reminder of spontaneity and feeling, yes, obviously, physically removed from your environment so that you don't have to do the day to day. And it feels nice and refreshing that when I got back last week, granted, last week I will say was kind of a wash because I had my cousin's wedding this weekend. So last week was literally do whatever work I need to, but then go straight into helping her finalize the details for this wedding. And it came out together again beautifully. But this week I've been just getting back into the groove finally after Memorial Day weekend. Still kind of an off week because Monday was, again, Memorial Day, and now we're already in Thursday. So it's like, all right, we're still not fully back in like the regular routine, but there have been reminders coming up for me already of, okay, back to work, back to thinking about optimizing stuff, organizing, business, all that. And what I want to share is just this reminder almost that I'm holding close for myself of not that it doesn't really matter or that it's not super urgent, but it's interesting in that you hone in on anything that you're doing, whether it's a client project, even a personal project. Like, you guys know, I've redone my website like 5,000 times, or content creation on your social media, like all these things that we put so much weight and priority about, and we are so fixated, like we have to do this, this is a requirement. If we don't do this, and then there's like a whole slew of stories on the other end, then XYZ, we're not going to get paid, blah blah blah. Not to dismiss that stuff and like take away from what's required to like show up and run a business and do the operations necessary to like survive. But an invitation, and something that I'm just trying to be mindful of, is zooming out a little bit and like really asking myself, like, how important is this really, or could this wait? Gosh, coming from, like, I look back in the first year or two of running my business, it was like everything was an emergency at all times. A client emailed me, immediately had to email them back. Someone slacked me, I had to get back to them right away. Someone sent me a deliverable, I'll get this to you tomorrow. Like, there was no sense of peace. And I don't know if I want to use the word boundaries, but like, for lack of a better term, like that concept of boundaries, or just space, if we want to say, is a really beautiful one. And I had this really amazing conversation with my accountant, my tax lady who did my taxes this year. Shout out to Sarah, and shout out to my friend Ashley who connected us, because Sarah's amazing. And we had a check in, our biannual check in, just to kind of see, where everything's going. She's someone new I decided to work with this year, which has also been a breath of fresh air. Invitation, guys, if you're working with a tax person you don't like, invitation to find someone new, because man, I've been with the same guy for all my life. And while he's helped me immensely with, getting my taxes squared away, oh man, did I like totally miss out on so much. I guess like, yes, knowledge and wisdom related to taxes, because he wasn't someone I could just like speak freely about my business. That was an extra charge, business consulting fee. I understand, not shaming that. That's how, his business was structured. But even just like alternative ways to run a business and consider how finances play in. And just as an example, I'll share with my former accountant, I think for all my life, I always just grew up, and maybe this is just because this is how my parents do their taxes and how they've always done their taxes, but you always put money away throughout the year so that you can anticipate a huge return. It's nice. Who doesn't like to get like a nice return from the IRS come, February, March, when your taxes are due every year? And I just kind of always grew up like believing that. And maybe when you're a W 2 employee or you work for a company, when you get money back, that is nice, because obviously taxes are inevitable when you're getting a stable paycheck every 2 weeks or whatever your cadence is. But when you're a business owner, that actually invites a completely different dynamic. And Sarah, my lovely accountant, tax lady, informed me of how different and refreshing it could actually be when I remove myself from that model of aggressively paying every quarter to just get all that money back. So at the end of the day, it is my money that I'm giving the IRS only to like get it back a year later. And so obviously this is context dependent, and I am nowhere near a financial guru and professional by any stretch of the imagination. But what was so just eye opening for me was that there's this other alternative that for my lifestyle, seeing that my income totally fluctuates every month, and it's better for me to actually have more cash and income on hand immediately than to like give it away to the IRS and then just have like a fat stack of cash come March once a year, every year. We just had this beautiful dialogue of what that looks like from a financial perspective, of how much I actually should be paying quarterly. Um, and just crunching all the numbers, all of that. So that's just been like lovely. I just wanted to share that as like an aside of invitation to look at your tax person. If you're not happy with them, consider someone else, because obviously the income that you're making, especially if you're a business owner or a freelancer, is a massive part of what you are doing, your operations, your day to day. And so, if that's not optimized, or if that's not working for you, if that's working against you, that's a huge hindrance. And for the first time moving into this year, I finally feel like so at peace with finances, knowing that like I don't have to make sure that I need to scrap away thousands of dollars every quarter just to overpay and get that money back come March. My nervous system is so stabilized. I feel so at peace with that. So that's been a blessing. The other thing too is being at peace with where I'm at with client work. Um, I'm in an interesting space, and I was sharing this with my accountant, lovely tax lady, just the other day. But I'm in an interesting season that I haven't experienced in a while, which involves having a couple of retainer clients. I started my business 5+ years ago, mostly doing retainer work, social media clients, content creation, etc. And it's actually what allowed me to generate the most revenue, because they're consistent. You can plan for this type of work. You know exactly what you're doing. There's like a nice, rigorous, beautiful schedule. That's, yeah, just been very nice about that. And I haven't had that in years, because I moved away from retainer work and went exclusively bigger branding projects. And I will say, to have that back has been lovely, like just lovely, because my nervous system feels calm, because I know at least every month I'm getting a certain amount of dollars in my bank account. And the other huge reframe that's taken me months, if not years, to embrace is I have just enough. I have just enough every single month, and there's no unsettled feeling within me that I have to get more. Not to say that I'm not open for other work, because of course, obviously I am. I think what's beautiful about the system and just like the way that I have things planned out right now is my two retainer clients give me just enough every month to get by, but then I have so much space to take on any additional one-off projects. So bigger branding projects, smaller branding projects, free, like whatever, or social media, packaging, merch, like any project that comes my way that's like, hey, I need this couple weeks, whatever, or I want to start a brand, okay, a couple months. The retainer clients are on the back end and they're just like, I'm carving away X amount of hours every week to do that. That's great. And there's an openness about it, but it's not this like desperate desire that I need to get more. And this has been, I can't tell you guys how relieving it has been to shift my perspective around this, because when I fell into mentorship and coaching the first couple of years in my business, which again helped me immensely expand my business and give me so much awareness and wisdom on all things operations and business and freelancing and all that, I did also recognize that I fell into this trap of more, more, more. And we've all seen it. If you're an entrepreneur, it's this like allure, especially when you're on social media and you're seeing other owners or founders do this, of like that hustle of like, okay, 5K months. All right, 10K months consistently. Okay, then 15, 20. And it's like the ceiling just gets higher and higher and higher, and it never, ever, ever stops. And I for sure fell into that after year two, feeling like, okay, I hit my 10K milestone every month. All right, now we're going to go after 15K. We're never going to go down, because then so quickly you begin to almost pigeonhole yourself into, yes, in a way, kind of like then operating from a place of like profit over purpose. But there's also this slippery slope of like, if you almost like put all your worth, if you attach your worth to this number of 10K, if it dips below that, then you're a failure or your business is not performing. Like, as though there's no room or space for fluctuations or like in between seasons. So, going back, coming full circle from the top of this conversation that I started of being humbled and being really more flexible with my opinions or perspectives, this was a very, very hard lesson that I had to learn and just become open to of, Evelina, like, you're not a failure just because you're not bringing in the same sort of income you were in the first 2 years of business. And it's actually okay to think about your business in a completely different way. So I'm really approaching these next several months from this place of peace and just gratitude and grounding for everything. The retainer clients have been a blessing, and I'm so grateful. I'm continuing to do that work diligently with joy as best I can, and staying open for additional income revenue streams that may unfold in whatever kind of ways they can. But it feels really good. It feels really, really good. And to consider where Studio Domka was last year, of basically almost not existing, me going through my bankruptcy journey, nearly closing my business, to now being here where I'm like, actually, it's all right. And let's like get back to growing it, but in a way that feels just so good. Like, it's not growing to chase some sort of a trend or hit some sort of a monetary marker, but it's growing because I genuinely just want to expand it, and the purpose that I always had for it is front and center, and I want to just bring that more to light. and and that's it. And that just feels so, so good. So that is what I'm looking forward to and anticipating for the month of June, sharing some projects and behind the scene work that I've done with a few really beautiful and amazing clients. I had the joy of doing a mini rebrand for an old client who came my way. I actually took on a free project for a dear friend because I just felt so much conviction in my heart to help her, and I saw her vision and I wanted to bring it to life. And I'm trusting that whatever kind of compensation for that needs to come through will happen, and it probably will look differently than I expect. It might not be money like I normally charge for this type of work, but it could be a really beautiful referral or a connection that could take me other places. And then I had an amazing photo shoot with one of my other clients that flew in from Florida. We shot right here in Hartford with this incredible photographer, Josh, who I connected with on a whim at a coffee shop just a few months ago here locally in my town. So God has just been working like in beautiful ways. And I'm constantly being reminded just to trust the whole process, to trust the journey, to let go of fear and scarcity, to continue giving, to embrace this energy of like enoughness and sufficiency, and to just always operate from that place, and to remember that there's space for so much more beyond business. And I was shown that during my vacation. Actually, this is the last thing I'll say, but my accountant reminded me of that. She's like, you went on vacation for like 2.5 weeks and you didn't really touch your business, and it's still kind of functioning and doing okay. I'm like, yeah, like I would not have been able to do that years ago. Computer on every day, checking in Slack, whatever, design. I think I opened my computer twice and did some quick little things that needed turnaround, but that was it. And I didn't feel any type of way. I felt so peaceful. And it's just like the best feeling to be in this place, to know that, again, balance, if we want to use that word, if it exists, but balance between work and life is like there right now. And it feels really nice. An equilibrium, maybe, or a harmony of not feeling like I need to prioritize one over the other, but both can just like exist because they're feeding into each other and supporting one another. So moving forward into June and the rest of the year, really, is that's what I want to hold on to, is being so mindful of that harmony between both, while wedding dreaming and being present for the summer. It's my absolute favorite time of year. It's finally consistently warm here. Granted, this past weekend was a total wash. Like literally, it was pouring rain for the wedding, but it looks like moving forward, consistent 70s, and it's going to be June next week. So like, come on. I mean, if the weather's not great at this point, I'm going to have to pull a conspiracy theory and say that like someone's out there manipulating something, because this is like ridiculous. It's June. We should be consistently in the 70s, if not 80s at this point. So anyway, I think I'll end here. This has been a rant. We're almost at an hour 30. So if you're still here, thank you so much for listening, whether you've been walking or driving or just multitasking in your kitchen or whatever it is you're doing. Thank you, as always, for listening. This was fun to catch you guys up on a really personal, beautiful life experience with engagement. And I will definitely be keeping you guys in the loop on more wedding dreaming stuff and any business revelations, things that unfold, things with design or creativity that come about. And something I didn't touch on, but I can't really because nothing's shifted, is the home stuff, the apartment. I promised you guys updates on that. That has been stagnant, considering I haven't been home for the last month, and it was just kind of put on pause financially from that regard. There haven't been finances to fund any projects or revelations and changes with our apartment. But now that we are back and we're just kind of getting back into the groove and vacation expenses are done with, granted, we got to pay off some of those credit cards. I'm hoping that some really creative, inexpensive ideas come about of little touches and details we can add to our space, because that is another avenue that brings me joy, obviously. And I know you guys love to see all the home stuff. So that is definitely something for the summer that I hope to do, is just make our home more homey. So be sure to keep your eyes peeled for that. But in the meantime, I'm going to go. I'm going to jump into some client work, make myself an overdue matcha for the day, and catch up with you guys next time. So thank you again for being here.